Hi, Michelle Glass here. Welcome to our first episode of Chapter 28, Lecture 28. And our topic for this whole chapter is the reproductive system. And we're going to start first by talking about the male reproductive system, and then we will move on to the female. So the job of the male reproductive system is essentially to make sperm. And of course, that's occurring in the gonads, which for males are called testes. That's the plural form. And then also you have cells in the testes that are producing androgens, which are our male sex hormones. Most commonly familiar androgen is testosterone, and it is the job of these hormones to maintain the male reproductive system, maintain sperm production, and also as part of all of this, maintain what can be described as secondary sex characteristics. And these are those characteristics that we see in adult males that make them visually appear as males, separate from females. So things like facial hair and the thicker body hair on chest and sometimes back, the difference in height, the difference in musculature, the formation of the Adam's apple, all of these characteristics that we recognize, in addition to like sex, libido, and things like that. So let's go ahead and begin by tracing the path of the sperm. So your sperm cells are being produced in the nurse cells, which are located in the seminiferous tubules, which are found coiled up in the testis, would be the singular version of the word testes. So of course, males have two of these. From the seminiferous tubules, the sperm will move into what's called the rete testis, and from there into the efferent ductules. So let's look at my drawing here. Of course, you can reference the artwork in your text if you want a better diagram. So we're looking at the testis in blue, and inside you have these coiled up tubes called seminiferous tubules, and that's actually where those nurse cells are located, and that's where the sperm is being produced. From there, they all feed into the rete testis, which feeds into the efferent ductules or efferent ductules, which of course means exiting. So now we're exiting the testis, and we'll see them moving into a structure called the epididymis. The job of the rete testis and the efferent ductules is to collect and concentrate the sperm and send it on, as I've mentioned, to the structure called the epididymis. Now the testes, there's two of these located together in the scrotum. The scrotum is the sac that's holding the testes outside of the body cavity in order to get a reduction in body temperature. We see that the sperm require a temperature that's about 2 degrees cooler than normal body temperature. And so the scrotal sac is going to hang outside of the pelvic cavity, providing this cooler sort of environment. Now, the two testes are separated into compartments within the scrotum. There are two different muscles that are going to be found in the structure of the scrotum that are both helping to hold the testes out of the pelvic cavity and also make adjustments for temperature. So you have the dartus muscle, which is in the dermis. This is going to, with resting muscle tone, elevate the scrotum, and it's also responsible for that wrinkled appearance of the scrotal sac. And then the cremaster muscle is a deeper muscle. This is a skeletal muscle that will contract during sexual arousal or when there's a drop in temperature, bringing those testes up closer to the body to increase temperature. And so we're seeing that both of these are adjusting to either allow the testes to hang lower or up closer to the body, depending on environmental temperature conditions. Okay, so we've been already seeing that the sperm are produced in the nurse cells in the seminiferous tubules, moving from there to the rete testis, to the efferent ductules. All of that is still inside the testis. From there, the sperm will move into the epididymis and then into a tube called the Ductus Deferens, or what I have more commonly referred to as the vas deferens. This is the tube that will actually leave the scrotal sac and enter the pelvic cavity. Here we're seeing our epididymis as the structure that's sort of sitting on top of the testis. It has a bunch of important jobs. So it's going to monitor and adjust the fluid that's being produced by the seminiferous tubules. It's also going to be important in recycling damaged sperm, as well as storing those sperm for about 3 weeks as they complete their maturation before they enter the ductus deferens. The ductus deferens or vas deferens is the tube that's transporting the sperm to our next location, which is called the ejaculatory duct. From the ejaculatory duct, we will see that the sperm empty into the urethra. So now we are joining up with the urinary system. So this is something that we see in males, but not females. There are different sections to the urethra. We see the ejaculatory duct empties into the membranous urethra, which then becomes the spongy urethra. That's going to be the part that's extending through the penis and then emptying out the urethra opening. So here we're seeing our ductus deferens leaving the scrotum, coming around the urinary bladder in the pelvic cavity, and then emptying into the ductus deferens, entering into the ejaculatory duct. Also emptying into the ejaculatory duct, you have the seminal gland. The seminal gland is one of our key accessory organs. It's producing about 60% of the volume of the ejaculate, and this fluid has several jobs. One job is to help adjust the pH of the urethra because remember, it's shared with the urinary system, so you've had this acidic urine passing through, and we need more alkaline conditions for the sperm. We also see that it's not until the sperm come in contact with the seminal gland secretions that they actually become motile, and this is because this secretion contains fructose and phosphorus and potassium that those sperm need in order to make the ATP, in order to actually propel themselves or swim through the urethra. There are also proteins in the seminal gland that will make a protective layer around those sperm, and we'll see prostaglandins in the seminal gland secretions that will help to reduce a female immune response that might otherwise attack those sperm cells. From there, we see that we're entering into the membranous urethra, which will be passing through the prostate gland. The prostate gland is also producing some of the fluid in the ejaculate, about 25% of the ejaculate. And the key job here of this fluid is to prevent coagulation or clumping of the sperm once entering the vagina. There's a third accessory structure that's called the bulbo-urethral gland or Cowper's gland. This one actually produces the pre-ejaculate, which is a thick alkaline mucus. So it's going before the sperm in order to kind of wash out the urethra, again, producing an environment that's conducive and safe for the sperm cells. Also, it's helping to lubricate the tip of the penis before the ejaculation actually occurs. Sometimes in this pre-ejaculate, there can be sperm cells. So it's important to remember when practicing birth control method that the pull-out method is not a good method. This is the method where the man pulls out of the female prior to ejaculation, but there can be some sperm present in that pre-ejaculate, which can cause impregnation. Also, you're still getting mixing of body fluids, so that's not going to be an effective method to prevent a sexually transmitted disease. Notice that the membranous urethra becomes the spongy urethra as it passes through the external genitalia for the male, which is, of course, the penis. And that's it for now.